There was a sharp knock at the door, like a beak striking the wood, followed by the scrape of talons. Miriam flinched. The time of the purge had come around again. She stood gazing out her kitchen window into the flower garden women like her kept. She wondered if she had done enough to guard herself from this curse on women when the strike of the beak came. She built barricades around her home and family. She burnt sage to ward off bad spirits. She hid protective amulets throughout her house and garden, and talismans with sigils and pentacles as protective shields. She carried crystals in her purse and pockets at all times and planted defensive herbs at the front and back doors. In her garden, she buried witches' jars filled with crystals, sharp nails, and razor blades to repulse evil energies. From tree branches, she hung sharp hooks to catch evil eyes. Inside, she lined the window sills with salt and adorned the walls with iron fixtures and decor to act as buffers. The curtains were perforated with pins to impale any spirits that might try to gain entry there. Under windows and around doors, she buried flintstones napped into sharp arrowheads. There was nothing more she could do. Would it hold against the talons that scraped at her door? This curse knit itself into the fabric of the universe. Its action began soon after the creation itself. The season had come around again. The last time it arrived, she was a little girl when it took her grandmother. How many would be lost this time? She knew that sound and ran for the door. "What the hell is that?" yelled her husband. "I'll show them," he grumbled, pulling his rifle out of the closet. "I'll give them a good scare." No, don't do that." Miriam threw herself against the door. "You will let her in." The curse used men to bring itself to fruition. It used their love of women against them. Menfolk were so blindly unaware of the curse that men couldn't be blamed for it. She tried to protect her men from its silent influence. She clandestinely painted the symbols of Mars into the men's spaces, spears, and helmets, to invoke these masculine powers to fortify the menfolk of the family. She sewed strands of gold into her husband's clothes to imbue them with Zeus' protective energies. She filled their rooms with oak tables and statues of eagles and bulls, and laid Hercules' lion skin to cover their bed to thwart the deceptive power of the curse over them. "Then I will shoot it," her husband shouted. "Let it go. Let it go free." "This is not your obligation," she begged him. She blocked the door with her body. Her husband ignored her pleas. He grabbed her by the shoulder and shoved her aside. Miriam fell to the floor. She grasped his legs, but he kicked at her. "You don't understand," she yelled at him. "Zeus, placate his anger," she begged. Outside, the pecking beak and scraping of talons continued, even more frenzied than before. "This is Zeus coming to spoil the women," he yelled in turn. "He will not spoil my household. She is trying to get in. Don't let her in. This is female treachery." The curse always uses women's nature to warn and protect against her. Her husband threw the door open. Before he could aim his rifle, a huge bird flew into the room. The giant bird had black shiny feathers and frightened yellow eyes that darted about, looking between Miriam and her husband. It flew around the room, dropping black feathers on the carpet and furniture. The man tracked the bird with his rifle, which let out a loud bang as he fired. The bird dropped to the floor, flopping around, smearing its blood on the carpet until it finally lay dead. Miriam knelt on the floor. She rocked back and forth, groaning and mumbling, "You let her in, you let her in." "No worry," said her husband. "I killed it." He picked up the dead bird by its feet, avoiding the sharp talons that clawed the door, and hoisted it into the air so that its black wings hung down. The bird's limp head dangled between them, its yellow eyes lifeless. Miriam screamed as feathers sprouted from her arms. Her mouth and nose elongated into a hard, sharp beak. Her legs and feet transformed into powerful claws with sharp talons. The last thing she was able to say before her voice changed into a screech was, "Let me fly free." Her husband, horrified by his wife's sudden transformation, at least obeyed her final plea. The door was still open. This bird with shiny black feathers and frightened yellow eyes flew through the open door. Her husband chased behind. The bird flapped her large wings and ascended over the rooftops. As her husband watched her fly to safety, he heard a shotgun blast from the street. The pellets missed Miriam as she fled over the treetops. "Hey, that's my wife you're shooting at," yelled the husband. "That's my wife," said the shooter. "She turned into a black bird right in front of me." "So did mine," said Miriam's husband. "Your wife is dead inside my house." "Don't let her get away," said the shooter, and ran after her. Miriam's husband chased after him. The two men with guns chased after the giant black bird through the streets of their quiet neighborhood. Women huddled inside their houses watched from behind closed doors and curtained windows. Curious men stood on their front porches and made mental notes to retrieve their guns just in case of another disturbance. The black bird with the shiny feathers and frightened yellow eyes flew to her old friend's house to warn her, and began to sharply knock at the door with her beak striking the wood, followed by the scraping of her talons. From behind the door, a woman's voice screamed, "Don't open the door, you will let her in."